Hey everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. I wasn't quite sure what to title this one. Part of me was thinking, oh, we can call it adding structured unrelated documents, or faking structure, or synthesizing structure within documents. Really what it is a detailed look at how to use sort of some of our common functions, in this case virtual folders and manual linking of documents. What those two functions are really doing is it's applying structure to documents that otherwise don't have any structural relationship. So let's get this started today. We're going to take a look a little bit, first of all, at a little bit about structured versus unstructured environments. I covered this in a recent webinar, but I wanted to recover this material anyway. So some of the common features of a structured environment include the organization, classification, and tagging of digital records and documents, including those that otherwise would normally be unstructured. Controlling access to digital content, auditing, creating an audit trail of activities, so there's records of what happened for review. Looking at version control, so we always know what the current version of a document is, retention policies to enforce who's allowed to see content, and extending paperless functionalities such as workflow or search. These are common things that we see in a document management software in a structured environment. These are all parts of it. When we talk about structured versus unstructured environments, a structured environment is highly organized and formatted. An unstructured environment does not require pre-formatting, so you can add whatever you want to, however you want to, whenever you want to. In a structured environment, there's a relational database in the background that's working to put content together logically. In an unstructured environment, it's completely separate entities of data. There's no cross relationship, there's no relationship formed by a database that's linking that. In a structured environment, you're using schema or a database record to control the use type for the documents. In an unstructured environment, there's no use type defined, so you're left sort of on your own for those. In a structured environment, you can do custom tagging for documents such as metadata, and in an unstructured environment, you're limited to only the application properties. And finally, in a structured environment, you require processing for new content that's been added, whereas in an unstructured environment, you can add anything you want instantly and it's taken on board. Now, in sort of that context, it's worth talking about that information is related where possible in a structured environment. So metadata is more than just tagging documents. It creates a relationship between content via information, and these are robust connectors. So we'll use a couple of examples here. Let's say I have a document, and when I add that document into a structured environment such as FileHold, I'm going to tag that document's information, and that's going to create a data set that is available for that relational database. So here I've got data set A, which is value 2, value 4, and value 6, and then I create data set B, which is value 1, value 3, and value 5. That information is put together to create a value table, and that value table then becomes reference point of information. So in this case, my two data sets are not related with information, although they share a table worth of value because they're pushing information between them. That value table allows me to show a relationship between the two documents, even though the information between them may be different. So, data set A could be an invoice from a company, data set B could be another invoice from another company. The two don't cross over, but they still create values in the table which can be referenced. Now, the value table then becomes the most important part of the information, because then when we have a separate set of documents such as a purchase order or a sales order or a purchase, an invoice, a sales order, a purchase order, or a packing slip, all of which have the same PO number attached to it, that information can then come together within the database, and it shows that these are linked as objects. So if I search for one point of value, if I'm looking for one piece of information, I find the others just as easily because they are related together. This is a robust connection. It doesn't matter where I put these documents, it doesn't matter where I store them, the relational database still shows this information tagged together. So let's take that idea then and look at unrelated structured content. Now, some documents or records do not have relational information stored in the database. So, for example, you might find non-metadata content such as document text. This information is related to each document, but it's not directly tied together. This is not dependable information, and you get a lot of false positives. The more broad the word is, the more likely you are to find it. Think of how many documents in your organization has your company's name in it. Probably 90 to 95% of them, easy guess. So if you try doing a search for those documents based on a text, you're not going to find any content because that's not actually meaningful information. Yes, they're related, but they're not true structure as we would think of it. A second example of it is where we might rely on institutional memories. So somebody knows that the two documents are related together, but there's nothing in the documents themselves that show that they in fact are related together. You might have to take a very deep dive into it in order to find that information. And of course, that's a very fragile connection. It's not accessible to anybody else. Someone who lacks the institutional memory would have no idea where to find that content. Third, we have temporary relationships. So in this case, we have some reason to bind the two documents together, but it's for a limited period of time, and this is not needed for long-term management in the organization. In these three cases, we're dealing with documents where we're trying to show structure where there's otherwise no structure to be found. So in that context, these can be dealt with in one of two strategies with FileHold. The first one is we can create a robust connection between the documents and records. So we could, for example, add metadata fields or even create new schema in order to show these relationships. While these create new robust bonds, they also create additional activity that needs to be maintained. We have new metadata fields that need to be completed. We have new schema that need to occupy space in the system. Remember, one of our core tenets is the effort needed to maintain the structure in FileHold should not exceed the value that structure provides to the organization. And so if these connections will be essential to most documents or records in the long term, then this is a very good approach, creating these robust connections for future reference. However, if these are only useful to some documents and only temporarily, then this might be an excessive amount of work. You might be spending more effort in creating that structure than you're going to get as an organization for the value. In that case, we can start looking at strategy 2, which is create a temporary connection between content. We have three examples of this. The first one is saving searches within the text of the document. We're not focusing on the metadata, we're looking purely at the text of the document to find a relationship together through a saved search. Secondly, we can look at using virtual folders as a way to binding documents together. And third, we can look at manual links to forge a relationship to create an artificial structure between these documents. Now, while these are less robust than metadata or schema, these solutions provide simple tools accessible to all full users for establishing a relationship between content and reducing the institutional knowledge for interrelated content. So this allows us to show a relationship, but do it quite quickly and with a simple set of tools. This is not structure, but a simulation of structure. It appears to be structure because you've decided it's onto there, but it doesn't otherwise follow that structural relationship idea where we have the other factors that contribute into it. Consistent use of these tools should be examined. If these do offer value to the organization in the longer term, metadata should be used to forge strong bonds. In this case, we're using weak bonds. So let's look at these tools for simulating structure and see when they might be applicable. We'll start with our save searches for text. One of the pros is it's automatic for all content with a text layer. So it doesn't matter if it's a Word file or an Excel document or a scanned PDF that has text in it through OCR or an electronically generated PDF or anything that has a text layer automatically has that text added into the search index. And with that, it becomes very easy to access this particular set of tools. So anybody who can see those documents can search for that text layer. The biggest problem is this casts the widest, least accurate net. We are more likely to come back with false positives and incorrect information than we are correct information. So it's going to require a lot more sifting. So this is a primitive tool to use. And therefore, the results have the most factor for you get the most results with the least reliability. You actually kind of get the worst of both worlds with this, in that you get back everything and with a low degree of reliability or accuracy. So we want to use that with caution. Our second tool is a manual link between documents, and the pro on this is that it's very simple to use. Anybody can do it. However, there's some cons to it. The first, you must observe it to find it. If you don't see the link icon beside the document, if you're not looking for that, you may not see that relationship of information. We're not giving you a lot of tools to extract that. When we use robust tools like metadata, we can display that information on screen. We can do the link by metadata value, or we could do a search. There's lots of different ways to find that. We want to push that information forward. You have to know there's a link there in order to find that link, or at least be aware that you need to look for that link. It also requires a hierarchical relationship between content. If I link two documents by a metadata value, I'm not saying that one of them takes precedent to the other. But because FileHold is structured, we need to choose a document to be the parent document to the other one. So we're automatically creating that hierarchical relationship between content, and that can be a negative. Our last tool is virtual folders, and actually something that I would promote as a great way to show, to simulate structure between documents. A virtual folder can be public or it can be private, so everyone can see it or only a few people can see it. You can add any kind of content to it that you want to, so it doesn't matter what's in the system, whether it's a document or a record, it can always be added to a virtual folder. And it's probably the most accessible because every user has access to the virtual folders regardless of their status within the system. So if you make a public folder, it doesn't matter if you're a full user or a limited user, you can access and see that particular folder. From the downside of it, it's separate from the library. So although we're not moving the document into a virtual folder, we're creating something that's distinct from it. You can't see those documents from within the library. There's also no indicators in the library or in a search that they may be part of a virtual folder. So again, it does require on some institutional knowledge that that folder exists. So in that context, we're going to now take a dive into taking a look at creating some temporary structure. I'm going to look at all three of these. And we're going to start off with the most basic version. First of all, I'm going to load up the desktop application. Here we are. And we're going to start with using our search tool. So in this case, we're going to do our search. And I'm going to go into advanced search. So I can go into my file or metadata and change this from full text search to file only. So now I'm doing a broad net and I'm looking at just the text of the documents only. So if I do a search for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and run my search, these are the 19 documents that come back. The information that I've searched for here may also be available in the document's metadata. I suspect if I open up this document's metadata and file properties, I will see that there is a sure enough, we have a sales order number on this, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Happens to be a sales order number. I don't know if that information is relevant to others. So let's now jump over here to this document and see where my information is here. We're looking for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So in this case, it wasn't in the metadata. Here it was in the metadata. So I may have different values to this. Instead, if I want to see what this is for them, I have to open my document. So let's just open this up. And we're going to take a look at our content here. I'm going to grab a local copy. Oh, I have to open up with Edge. Freshly loaded system. So here's my PDF, and sure enough I can see the PO number up here. So in one case it's a sales order number, in another case it's a purchase order number. So I'm seeing unrelated information from the database, but it's still finding both of them because it's text within the documents. So we're able to use this tool to extract this information from here and be able to see it. Now if I needed to, I could save this as a save search using my save as save search, and I could make this a public search if I wanted to, or a private search to show the relationship together. Anybody who clicks that search will run the search. Now there's a couple of factors in this. First of all, I can show the link between these documents, but I have to have permission to be able to see all the schema, all the cabinets, all the folders for these documents in order to see the content. And in truth, that's true for all of these examples. So it's not necessarily a limitation here. Secondly, I'm giving no valuation as to the strength of these connectors. This simply happens to be a grab bag of these documents. But it's definitely a tool that can be used, and it's very simple to set up in order to run one of these save searches. So that's our first option. Our second one is creating a link between documents. You can see I've got a linked column down here for these documents. So anytime I click one of these, it shows me the documents that this happens to be related to. And here I can see a history of the different documents together. I can also see their relationships. This screen that pops up allows me to take a deeper dive into the document, so I can see sales orders, bills of lading, invoices, sales package, sales order form, the different points of information that help me to identify what the story is on this particular document. I can see the relationship together. Now, if I happen to have that metadata field that's completed, if I happen to have a purchase order number for the metadata field, then great, I can see that information. But if I was missing something, for example, maybe the bill of lading doesn't have the purchase order number as a connector to it, I can still see that information through a manual link. Manual links are easy to create. The first thing we'd want to do is we want to do a search to find related documents. Let's do a search for the word FileHold in the file values, and I find my document. So let's say that this is a particular bundle and I want to show a relationship between them. So I'm going to right click onto these and we are going to make a link to them. So if I right click, usually it's going to require some of the other, oh, there it is. I'm just going to use my link button up here, and now we're going to create a relationship between them. Now, very important here, when I link these documents, I need to choose a parent document to them. One document is going to be in charge of the other. So if I choose, for example, this John Smith document and forge the link, now my documents will have that as a linked value. All right, here's my John Smith document. When I click onto that there, here we've got all of my documents linked together so I can see their relationship, and I've forged that into here. So now we've got a link established between these. If I click on the one document, I can see the links to the others. So even though I wasn't looking at that one necessarily, let's just click on one of my other documents here. So we'll select this one and open up the link for it. And we can see the documents that this is linked to. So I can see the different link relationships over here. So this is a really powerful tool for being able to show these relationships between documents, even though they may have nothing to do with each other. And in fact, that's kind of the point of this manual link, and it establishes that in between here. Again, we're simulating a structure for the environment. And our third tool is a virtual folder. So virtual folders, something that everybody has access to. So if you're a full user, you should be able to see your virtual folders over here. They come in two flavors. You have my virtual folders and public virtual folders. Your personal folders, the ones for your my virtual folders, are the ones that only you can see. So when I open these up, these are my individual areas that I'm looking at. So for instance, here's all my documents related to PO 123456. Now again, I have a metadata link between these documents. What I'm doing is I'm showing that this is how I could gather documents together temporarily. Because this is a personal virtual folder, I can make as many of these as I want to, and I can structure any of the documents into here that I would like. Now if I go into the properties for this, I can make this a public virtual folder, and when I do that, I can allow other people to be able to add or remove documents from that virtual folder as needed. So for instance, I can allow Document Publisher to add documents or allow them to remove documents, and then choose anyone who's going to want to be able to see this. So in this case, I'm going to share this with my accounting head team, and now everybody who's part of that group can see this particular set of virtual folders. Where virtual folders are extremely powerful is where I'm gathering documents that lack metadata values. So for example, I do a batch scan of documents, I bring them into the system as a temporary schema, and then I move them into a virtual folder. As people complete working on those documents, and when I say working on them, tagging them with the relevant metadata to make those strong bonds, I can then select the document and clear it and remove it from that pile. And by allowing other people to remove documents as they work them through, they can clear them, get them out of the system, and make sure that I'm only keeping documents into here that have that strong bond. But in the meantime, I can use this as a temporary bond to show them together. I can simulate that bond of activity. So to recap, we have our saved searches, which can be done against any of the values. In the case of text, we're looking at a weak bond, so I can bring those together. Our second option is to use the our second option is to use a manual link to show documents together, and our third option is virtual folders. Before I wrap up, I want to show one other function, which is a way of doing almost like a search, but showing a link that actually shows some of these strong bonds. So we're going to open up one of our documents metadata. Now if you're on FileHold after 16.3, you're going to see, sort of 16.3 or greater, if you right click on any of these documents, you're going to see a few options here. One of them is to see linked by value. And when I select that, all documents where the PO number is 123456 appear down here. These are these strong bonds to the documents. I could also say show me ones that are the same schema or show me ones that are a different schema. So in this case, where they have the value, but they don't have the same schema. So I'm seeing outside of that document type, which again reflects these strong bonds between the documents. That's everything for now. Just want to thank everyone for attending and have a great day. Bye-bye.